Hello, and wherever you are in the world, welcome to this webinar. We're pleased that you're joining us for today's session, and before we hand over to our panelists, we'll run through a few housekeeping details. Firstly, there's a member of IOSH team operating behind the scenes to ensure the smooth running of this webinar. They are available to help you should you need it, and you can message them using the chat function, which is at the bottom of your screen. You will also see a Q&A option. If you have any questions relating to the content, please post these here. A Q&A will be carried out towards the end of the session, and we'll get through as many questions as we can. At the end of the presentation, a feedback poll will appear on your screen. Please take a moment to complete this, as we value your feedback, and this helps us to improve our service to you and shape future guidance. Any value you gain from this session can be used as part of your CPD portfolio. We do not issue formal certificates of attendance for our webinars, but you will receive an email confirming your attendance, details of which can be used to record your CPD. Information on CPD can be found on our website. Where we have been given a speaker's consent, these webinars are recorded and will be made available on our website. You'll also be able to find a list of all our other recordings, as well as details of any upcoming webinars. Finally, details of all of this information will also be posted in the chat box shortly. We would now like to hand over to our panelists and hope that you, as listeners, enjoy the session. Thank you.
Well, firstly, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you wherever you might be joining us from today. Thank you very much for taking the time out to be part of the webinar and to be watching us today. My name is Tristan Morrison. I'm one of the 24 members of the 24 steering group members for 2021 to 2023. I'm currently accompanied with 6 of the other members of the steering group, and we're basically tasked with providing you with various forms of support, information and material really over the course of the next 2 years regarding occupational health and safety. For those of you that don't necessarily know what the Future Leaders is about, it's an Irish initiative that's focused on aspiring professionals in the occupational health and safety industry, whether that's through being, well, by virtue of their age or through midlife career changes, anyone that's new to the industry that requires any form of support really. So as you're all aware, this webinar today is based on loneliness within the occupational health and safety industry. And we've titled our webinar as such, the Honesty Series, because there's a lot of nitty-gritty things that people don't come to expect when they start working in health and safety. And we thought it'd be good to tackle these things, but also reference how you can develop and how you can overcome them. First of which being loneliness in the role, which is something we experience fresh into the job or even some years down the line. So a poll will be coming up soon, just with a few questions regarding loneliness and how it's applied to yourselves or within your role. And if you could fill that in at any stage, that would be fantastic. Thank you. So as far as the webinar structure today, we thought it'd be good to focus, because naturally you can talk about loneliness for ages. It's quite an extensive topic, but we thought we'd look at 3 main areas that we found loneliness, or ourselves anyway, from the Future Leaders group. And that's mainly loneliness within the job role itself, or due to the environment or the role that you're carrying out. Then loneliness when you're having to deal with management and board levels, and how that implementation of a safety culture at top level can be quite difficult sometimes. And then finally, the loneliness aspect when you're dealing with other working groups or communities or just working groups within your organization. So I think before we get started, it'd be a good opportunity to have a small introduction to the rest of the team, if they're happy to put their cameras on right now, and you can kind of get a feel for everyone that's going to be speaking. Myself, my name is Tristan Morrison, as I said. I'm 24 years old. I work as a risk control advisor and coordinator at a company called PRS. We do risk consultancy management and risk consultancy services throughout the country. So I've got benefit of being able to work in a wide array of industries, and it's never necessarily an office all day kind of job, which is fantastic and something I'm a big fan of. As far as my Irish journey is concerned, I'm a graduate member and I'm currently working to chartered. But again, same as many other people, I can often find loneliness throughout the industry and throughout my role on a daily basis. So I'm going to lend it to the rest of the team now to make their introductions. If I could have Sheena, please, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tristan. And hi, everybody. Welcome to our first Honesty Series webinar. I hope that you gain a lot of value from it. So I'm Sheena O'Brien. I live and work in Johannesburg, South Africa. So an international member of IOSH, a graduate member. I joined 2 years ago. I currently have a bachelor's degree in safety management, and I'm studying my honors in business management at the moment. So I started my health and safety career at my current company, Sun International, which is a gaming and hospitality group, so casinos, hotels, and resorts. I started there 11 years ago as an administrator in the safety department. And during that time, I studied part-time, I achieved my degrees, and I leveraged some opportunities which put me in my current role, which is group health and safety specialist. So my role is primarily strategic, focusing on health, safety, and well-being. I lead a team of SHE professionals across 14 business units with a total workforce of approximately 8,000 employees. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to sharing some of my experiences with you, and I really hope that some of the learnings from my journey will add value to yours as well. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sheena. If we could have Jamila, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jamila, and I am working in London, and I live in London as well. I'm originally from Italy with a background from Sri Lanka. I'm currently working as a health and safety advisor for the Royal Household, which is based within the heritage sector. And some of the activities that we support, there are a lot of different activities, but I think probably the most interesting are around art conservation works, exhibitions, and it is a visitor attraction as well. We cover the 3 palaces of Buckingham Palace, Palace of Holyrood House in Scotland, and Windsor Castle. And also we support ceremonial events like and state events as well. It's a very exciting place to work in. This is my first job in the IOSH profession. My background is hospitality management. Well, nice to meet you all, and hope you enjoy this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jamila. Could we have Samantha, please? That'd be great.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us. And thank you, Tristan, for introducing me. So my name is Samantha Banfield, and I work in the rail industry as a health and safety graduate. And I would say I'm relatively new on my health and safety journey. So following a career change, I've just completed 3 years of studying for my master's part-time in safety, health and environment. And I began my first safety role in August just gone, so just approaching that 12-month mark. And really looking forward to sharing, I guess, my perspective on loneliness when just entering the profession and the preparedness that you might have or might not have for that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Samantha. Next, can we have Alpa, please?
Thank you, Tristan. So hi everyone, I'm Alpa Aguera. I'm currently Health and Safety Advisor for Citizen, who are a social housing group based in the West Midlands. So this is a very new role to me. I started it a couple of months ago. So I'll be talking to you later on about being a new person starting a company and the loneliness that I have felt in my early days. So I've been in health and safety for 3 years now, and I'm currently a technical member of IOSH. Previously, my background has actually been in travel, where I spent 15 years in the travel industry. That led to a career change where I actually went into facilities management, and then having a site of health and safety from facilities management, I've decided to steer my career towards health and safety. So that's where I am at the moment. Look forward to talking to you all further shortly. Thanks, Tristan.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Alpa. If we can have Abdul Hanan next, please, that'd be great.
Thanks, Tristan. Hello, everyone. I'm Abdul Hanan Chima. I'm joining from Vancouver, Canada today. And today I'll be talking about my experience working in Saudi Arabia in remote projects and grassroots level projects within the Arabian desert. So I guess loneliness has not just been, it's been a physical part of the job too. So I'd be happy to share that part of the experience in the webinar. And I'm looking forward to discuss it with all the great presenters. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Abdul Hanan. And then last but not least, Adam. Thank you. All yours.
Thanks, Tristan. Hi, everybody. I'm Adam, again, part of this subgroup. I'm a health and safety officer at Northeast Further Education College. It's a relatively new role. I only started in May of this year, and that was after 11 years working at a students' union in various roles at a higher education institution. So again, like some of us here, we've gone through a career change, and it's very different. I work as part of a team of 3, but we all have different departments and roles and responsibilities. So that creates a sense of isolation and loneliness, which we want to talk about. But I completed an MSc degree last year. It took 4 years. I did it part-time, and now a graduate member of IOSH as well. And I look forward to having dialogue with you all.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So yeah, as I say, it's quite a diverse group of people. So hopefully somewhere amongst all of us, there might be a job role or a career stage that you can all relate to. And as I said, we've decided to separate the webinar into 3 main sections. So with regards to loneliness and the role itself, we'll have 2 or 3 people discussing their experiences from the panel, and then loneliness at management and board level, and subsequently the same for loneliness and management with regards to colleagues. So I think we'll start with loneliness in the role itself. That'll be Alpa, Adam, and Samantha that'll be sharing their experiences. So if we could have Alpa, please, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks again, Tristan. So as I mentioned in my intro, actually, I started a new role a couple of months ago, mid-pandemic. So there was a lot for me to get used to. My previous role, I was still going into the office, so I still had that interaction with my colleagues. So I was starting the whole home working a year later than everybody else had. So that was one of the anxieties I had when I started my role, along with starting a new company, being with new colleagues. Most of you will relate to this, I think, in terms of when you are starting a new role and with a new team, you generally do feel lonely anyway, because the team have already got a rapport amongst themselves. You still have to earn their trust, and as well as that, you want to show them your full potential, and that in itself does bring loneliness, because you haven't found that rapport to bounce off one of your colleagues with at that time. So, I mean, with my own personal experience, I have struggled with not being in the office environment, because I actually thrive with face-to-face communication and networking with the wider business in that form. So having the lack of team and managerial interaction is something that has made me feel more lonely sitting behind my desk here at home, where managers and existing colleagues have had the chance to build the rapport amongst themselves. So they automatically, not intentionally, do forget, oh, we have a new team member, we need to show them how to do this, this, and this, or what our procedures are. So it has been a matter of me just coming out of my comfort zone and just actually going, hey, look, I'm here, tell me what I can do. These are where my expertise lie. Can I help with anything? So these are the little tips and tricks I could probably give to you if you're starting a role when you're feeling that bit of loneliness. Just get yourself out there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Alpha. If we could have Adam, please, if possible. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So I always knew that when I would start a new role during a pandemic and with restrictions, it would be incredibly difficult. I've been working on a university campus, so I knew what to expect at college in lots of ways. But it was a case of not really knowing the role and what to expect, and what kind of things I would need to do when I was finding my feet. And I thought this would be okay because with everything, even though we couldn't be face to face, I couldn't necessarily be on campus. I always thought that things like Teams would make a massive difference and that everybody would just be communicating with me because I was their health and safety person and that they kind of needed me. And my isolation and loneliness came when my manager sent an email in the second week of me starting, and he said he is our new health and safety officer, would like to set up some meetings face to face. And out of the 8 departments that I work with, and some of them quite large and complex, only one response came back. I felt ghosted straight away. So I took the initiative the week after to send up a follow-up email, reintroducing myself and encouraging just chat through Teams, thinking that would be the way forward. Surely everybody would want to communicate with me via Teams. I got one more reply. Again, I felt very lonely and isolated in my first couple of weeks in the role. And it got me thinking, this is not what I signed for. This is not the job that I signed up for. This isn't what I studied for. This wasn't what I wanted to do as a health and safety officer. And it was a sad sort of moment. It was a sad sort of place within the first couple of weeks. I felt quite useless, and that loneliness really did have a toll. It did take its impact on me. And I think part of that was because I came from an organization where I worked across teams with different managers, and we were a relatively small organization. So, you know, we had been there for a while as well. And we centered around service users being students, and that's where we kind of got all of our work from. So moving into a health and safety role where it's very much about kind of compliance and checking and sort of making sure that everybody's got the tools and skills that they require, to make sure that health and safety, you know, is as best as it can be and that safety culture exists. It was all very weird. It was very, very unsettling. But I soon realized that the people who I was introducing myself to, these heads of departments, they would always make me lonely. They would always be busy. They would have lots of other things to be doing. And actually, health and safety isn't their top priority. As much as it is mine, it isn't theirs. And one of the things that I found to sort of get rid of that loneliness is finding my allies, finding the people on the ground who could really make a difference to myself. And they're the ones who are then be able to go and actually see and talk to and actually have lots of things going on. The other thing that made me feel as if I wasn't ghosted and that I was able to actually have interaction with people was actually my mentor, who's been in the health and safety profession for a little while, but he did a career change and he could resonate with myself, and he gave me sort of time just to talk and get those feelings out, which was really impactful and just allowed me then to build on that and build my resilience. So 2 months into the role, since starting, I am lonely to a degree, and I think others may feel that as well. But I've not got the engagement I wanted, but I've now got new engagement, which is so much more important to me, and that we're now connected and that we're going to improve health and safety as much as possible. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Adam. Finally, just Samantha, please. That'd be great. Thank you. All yours.
Thanks, Tristan. And thank you, Adam and Alpha. Those stories really resonate with myself as well. Obviously, we're part of the lockdown job roles where we started during a really strange time. From my perspective, it was my first safety role as well, similar to yourself, Adam. And I have to say, loneliness was never something I expected or even thought about when I was beginning my health and safety journey. And for some context, as I mentioned in the intro, I started the role in August, and I possibly naively went into the role assuming I'd have great workplace relationships straight away. And the reason I thought that was because I'd had other roles whilst I was studying, such as admin roles, receptionist roles, whilst I was paying for my master's. Within those roles, I felt quite welcome straight away, in the sense that I was given, I don't know, all the office gossip. But when I entered this new role with a safety title, I couldn't help but think people were a little bit hesitant, and it felt quite different. So even though, of course, everyone's pleasant and welcoming, I couldn't help but think I was kept at a bit of an arm's length. And those first few months were probably the loneliest role I had to date. And thankfully, this is where mentoring and having role models has helped me. Just someone I could ask those questions to and go, is it me, or am I getting this vibe? And they could tell me honestly, actually, it's probably what you do, and that perhaps you don't have that trust straight away because there's an expectation that potentially you could get people in trouble, which I never thought about. It's really out of character for me. So I would never assume that people would have that perception of myself. So what really helped was just working on that, knowing that that was the issue, and being more transparent with what I did, open with what I do, and just working on that to build those relationships. And I think it's really important for the role that we have to have those relationships, but also for myself to have enjoyment from the role as well. More recently, this steering group's been really helpful. Just hearing about our stories and sharing them. And it's also got me back into LinkedIn, where other safety professionals are sharing their stories. And I just say thank you if you're one of them on the webinar, because people like me are reading them and taking guidance from them. And I'm still looking for tips. So if anyone's got any, please put them in the comments. I'll be sure to read.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Samantha. I think it's a difficult thing to navigate. I think because for many of you, it's one industry or one job or one company that you're working for. Whereas I'm quite fortunate / unlucky that I'm in a consultancy role. So my role loneliness is a lot of travel to that regard. And the people that see me externally from a health and safety perspective, honestly, 9 times out of 10, it's not because they want to see me. It's not because it's morally correct. It's just because they have to, and they have to tick the box, whether it's the site audits or the accreditations or anything like that. So you constantly feel like you're a bit just outside by definition of my role itself. But at the same time, I've got a support network where all my colleagues are health and safety professionals. So it balances it out a bit there. Whereas if you're working for one company, you might be part of a smaller team and thereby just not have that support structure in place. Whereas at least if I go to a few meetings and I know that people aren't very interested in what I have to say, at least I can go back to the office and we can complain about it together. But it's not necessarily the same scenario for everyone else. Fantastic. So I think now if we go into kind of loneliness and how that manifests when you're trying to deal with management structures or the board itself, because naturally trying to influence or develop safety culture can be quite difficult if it's not invested in from the top firstly. But like everyone's already referred to now, you often feel quite secluded from that clique. So it makes it all the more difficult. We're going to have Samantha, Sheen and Abdul Hammond speak on this topic. So again, Samantha, if you'd be happy to take the floor, that'd be great. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tristan. So yeah, I've certainly been hit by loneliness in those situations. And, as I've mentioned, quite new to the role and speaking to management from this level and safety perspectives. So yeah, it's all been quite new to me. And I'm really lucky in the rail industry that safety is absolutely paramount in every decision made. If something's a must, then it will get done. And that's, I appreciate, a very privileged place to be in regards to safety. I think we can all relate to those daunting conversations when the question of reasonably practical comes to mind, or when you're the solo safety person in the room and you need to get your point across. And management at that level, they've got so much on their minds as well. Productivity, financial costs, all that into one. So when that spotlight's on you, yeah, I certainly feel the loneliness. And I don't know whether it's in regards to maybe the video conferencing in which I've had to have these conversations. I don't know whether that can make it easier to lose a room, if that makes sense to everybody, in regards to that eerie silence you might get, or when cameras might turn off and you start panicking about your Wi-Fi connection. I've certainly come off those calls and felt very lonely in my role. What's helped for me, and I appreciate might not be the case for everyone depending on the size of your organisation, we have quite a few safety professionals, and although we're not in the same department, we do link in with one another once a week just for a coffee and a catch up. And it's something I really look forward to, just having that soundboard for people that understand that kind of loneliness. And I think what we want to do as a future leaders steering group is for those people that don't have that, we can try and offer that, whether it's through LinkedIn, whether it's through these webinars, just give people a chance to talk about those experiences.
Fantastic. Yeah, completely agree, Samantha. And especially with the use of webinars and things like that, it's a blessing because we can still meet and we can still have things like this, and it is a wonderful tool. But at the same time, you do often just feel like you're a bit just disconnected, especially let alone if you've already been in the role and you're just having regular meetings with people. It's a lot easier to make the transition between face to face and then, you know, over Teams where you've already developed those relationships. But I think if it's coming into it fresh, you know, many people who have for the past 18 months started their role in a COVID health and safety world, if you will, it's quite difficult to build those relationships when you're not there, you're not reading the room, you're not gathering, you know, the feelings and the kind of vibes that everyone's giving off. So it makes it a task that's even more difficult. Fantastic. So I think if we can head into Sheena next, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tristan. Really interesting views from the panelists today. I resonate with a lot of their situations as well. And I think dealing with COVID is especially a difficult situation, especially when you're starting out in your career. So from my perspective, when I look at my past experiences from a management interaction role, it's more pre-pandemic. And it really came to the fore when I started my group position, which is about 4 years ago. So for me, I had moved from a business unit into a corporate role. I now had more of a strategic position, so I needed to engage with management across the business units at a senior management level as well with board. So for me, the biggest factor that I think contributed towards the loneliness I experienced was intimidation. Because you're put into this role, and I'm not old, I'm a 31-year-old. So you're put into this role, now you have to interact with management who are usually male, they're usually over 50. So now you have to try and influence them, you have to try and make them understand what is the benefit of health and safety, why do they need to buy into it. And what was interesting to note from the poll is that majority of the people said management buy-in was their biggest reason for feeling lonely. And I can totally resonate with that. When I started in my role, having come from a business unit, I know what that loneliness felt like because we didn't really have the management buy-in at a business unit level. So when I transitioned into my role, really what I wanted to achieve was to gain that management buy-in, not just for myself, but for all of the business units within my company. And it was really difficult at first because you sit in a management meeting, you explain what you're doing, and then there's maybe some blank faces, dull stares, you know, they nod their heads and then carry on. And that can be very daunting and lonely at first because it feels like a them against you type of scenario. And what I realized after having experienced those sort of interactions is that self-confidence for me was my biggest inhibitor. I didn't feel confident enough to stand up for myself. I didn't feel confident enough to assert what I needed to assert. To defend my position, you know, if there was an argument and a reason why we need to do a specific initiative, I didn't feel confident enough to do that. And what helped me overcome that was a mentorship program. So not necessarily through IOSH, but IOSH does have mentoring programs. My company had a mentorship program and I signed up to it. And it was about strong female leadership. So the mentor that assisted me really helped me deal with coping with my self-confidence issues. She showed me that I need to get out of my comfort zone. You know, what we tend to do is we sit in our little comfort zone and we don't want to get out of it because we're afraid of conflict or we're afraid of doing what we don't know. And being a young individual, you don't know a lot. And that's something that we can admit. We need to continue learning. And that's something you'll do late into life as well. So really for me, building that self-confidence was the key. And once I had overcome that hurdle, I began to assert myself. I began to challenge them. When they challenged me, I could defend my position and I could explain to them, this is why we need to do it. So anyone who's experiencing a similar situation, I mean, we need to be confident in our roles, in our abilities. And if you don't know, admit it and say, I will learn how to do it. But that is for me something that really helped me overcome that hurdle. And I must say, as it stands at the moment, and COVID definitely propelled that for me, the management buy-in went from this side to this side. When COVID hit, they were asking me for advice instead of me advising them. They were asking me, what are we doing to get our business open, to protect people? So I think because I set that little bit of groundwork and got the self-respect going between the management and myself, that really helped me transition the COVID scenario a lot better. So thank you. I'll chat again a little bit later about a different scenario for me.
Look forward to it. Thank you very much, Sheena. Next, we've got Abdul Hanan that's just going to share his experience with regards to loneliness at management and board level.
Yeah, thank you, Tristan. I agree with the panelists, and I especially like to talk further on Sheena's point about being intimidated initially by the management. And I think that's something that, especially on the management level, where we have powerful executives and advising them, and being challenged by them is perhaps something that where I felt in my experience that having a lot of preparation was one side of the job, but the other side was also to have an internal network that could support you, because that's very critical when talking to top management. Having a support network within the organization is very useful in such cases, and especially because in the beginning it feels like perhaps I would use a metaphor like a goldfish in a pool of whales or something. Like it's like us versus them, and perhaps having that sort of internal network of support is where it becomes easier to understand the management's perspective and to have a better argument to convince them. So that's one part. The other thing that I wanted to discuss was like having competencies and focusing on those competencies to improve them, perhaps by doing certifications or trainings. That's very critical, because it just highlights uh, in the view of the management that we can trust the advice of the HSE professional. So like it's not a direct, I would say, impact, but indirectly it has a lot of impact, and it helps to influence the management to focus on in my experience, I've been focusing on my competencies and improving them, and that's been something that's helped me get more spotlight in the eyes of the management and to get more confidence in dealing with them and to get their trust in situations where my advice was seeked. The other thing Sheena also mentioned about mentorship. For me, I've had a wonderful experience in IOSH's mentorship experience, and especially when I had a lot of challenging conversations with my top management, I was able to seek the support of my IOSH mentors and to understand and to appreciate the context of our discussions with the management and to get a support and understanding from my mentor to recognize where perhaps I was advising and reasonably practicable, and where perhaps something that I needed to improve on. So I found the IOSH mentorship to be very useful in also in such situations where I needed support from an outside professional who was perhaps not that much involved, but could give me some advice in his own experience. So that was quite useful for me. Thank you, Tristan.
Fantastic, thank you very much for that. So that finishes that section, if you will, with regards to loneliness and management at board level. We kind of go into loneliness and how it interacts with colleagues and other work groups in your industry or in your company role itself. And I think it was Timothy in the chat section that said, has anyone ever found health and safety, well, dynamics as such, or loneliness being affected by an industry change or anything like that? And I think personally it's quite an interesting topic, because a large problem that I find as young health and safety professionals specifically is we get these degrees, you get your memberships, you get everything, and sometimes, from what I've seen anyway, is some people feel like that gives them the right to be able to tell people how they should be doing their jobs, which is automatically not what we're there for, and automatically makes you more segregated when you are dealing with people. So for myself personally, I can go to a construction site one day and see someone doing something wrong on an excavator, but that doesn't mean that I know how to operate it, and I should be telling them how to operate it, because we're by no means experts in people's jobs. We just know how we can improve things and do things better. And I think it's understanding those people skills and that aspect of how to liaise with people, which also just helps you build those initial relationships, because, like someone else mentioned in the chat, you're kind of branded with that health and safety reputation as it is. So if the first thing you're going to be is approachable and personable, then that's half the battle, because, well, people will give you a bit more time a day. And then from another perspective, it's making use of the health and safety category as an opportunity to improve people's working environments. So I've audited retail environments where people have complained about chairs, complained about ergonomical issues and things like that. So instead of everyone getting stressed when health and safety comes, you look at it as an opportunity where people will actually make use of the service. So now we've got better seating arrangements, and there's that perception of, oh, health and safety is bad. It's like, well, no, we can use it for our benefit too. And that just helps build that culture and makes you more inclusive as opposed to this outsider, even in a consultancy role. I think, next is obviously loneliness with regards to colleagues and other people. So we've got Chamila and Sheena that are going to be talking after this. So if we could have Chamila on, please, that'd be great.
Hello again, thank you, Tristan. My experience relates to me joining the occupational health and safety profession, and it's very much related to Timothy's question as well. My background is hospitality. I worked pretty much all my life, about 15 years in the restaurant business, and starting from a waitress, I kind of grew up into management role. And by then I had a lot of responsibility for food safety and health and safety as well. And that led to this kind of be passionate about helping and supporting others to really help improve what the current standards are. And from there, I decided to do a qualification of the NEBOSH Gen Certificate, after which I randomly applied for a few jobs, and I was lucky enough to get one in the royal household, which I didn't really believe possible. My loneliness, my story really relates to, I think, a couple of things. The main one is going from a management position and in an industry which is very closely knitted and very much about spending a lot of time together, crazy hours, a lot of social activities, drinks and days out, and having a lot of fun, to joining more of a sort of corporate, serious organization. And the second aspect is actually the change of pace, of kind of, it was a total change for me. I went from working crazy hours to working 9 to 5, which was great. Starting in the royal household was awesome, and as I said, it's a very interesting organization to work at. It's very unique in its activities and what it does. And what I found is that the employees in the household are very, very experienced. They have very long services, and for most of the different sections and different job activities, we do have some of the best qualified people in probably the world. So what happens is that you have to provide advice to these great minds, and it's not always easy, especially since you're a newbie and they're very experienced. And imagine this organization has been around for 300, 400 years. So there are certain things that have been done in a certain way for many, many years. And change is something that is welcome and embraced, but not always in the same way. So at the beginning, I found it very difficult to influence and get the buy-in for positive change. And I think the biggest lesson for me from this experience is that the need to really understand what the challenges are for the actual specific teams I was dealing with, understand the whys, why there is resistance to maybe make some changes. And you find out very quickly that it's very much historical. People learn and people remember what didn't work. So they're very much reluctant to embrace change or really think in a different way. So personally, I think a couple of things which worked well for me were really trying to build relationships and become part of that specific team I was trying to interact with, be visible. We kind of spend, it's a very large place and we don't necessarily get to meet everybody every day, and make an effort to maybe meet somebody and have a chat during lunchtime, or when you go for a coffee, or even in a corridor, just stops and build those relationships, get to know, allow them to get to know you, but also get to know themselves. That really kind of helped to build that relationship and build that trust between, I think, at a human level, even before the professional level. And then once you become part of the team and kind of start understanding what the challenges are and why they're really resistant, you can perhaps introduce smaller changes and increase those smaller changes little by little. So it's almost like a longer haul, longer journey to get the work done, really. And in terms of I think it's very important, especially at the beginning, when you don't know people, not to make assumptions, not to think negatively, and really ignore the negative, acknowledge, recognize, and drive the positive, and really kind of put that negative stuff out of the window, almost like it doesn't exist. Because I think initially I felt really down and very sad, because I felt I wasn't really part of a team. I wasn't providing any value with my work, and that really sort of made me sad. I really like to see change. I like to see my work in practice, and that didn't really happen straight away. But once I decided to ignore the negative and focus on the positive and build those relationships, it really kind of helped me to drive forward. And now a few years later, I'm there, and a lot of positive change has happened. And yes, COVID has been a very difficult time for us as well. But I think it also provided positive opportunities for us to really look back, look at what we do, and do things differently. So I think this is it for me. Thank you, Tristan.
Thank you very much, Jamila. Next we've got Sheena to discuss her experiences with regards to colleagues and loneliness. Take it away, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Tristan. So when my experience with regards to loneliness and my colleagues was also very much when I started my group role, in the sense that I now needed to build relationships with 16 other business unit chief professionals, many of whom were much older than me, more experienced than me. So it was really intimidating, similar to the management, but in a different way. And I'm going to touch on the imposter syndrome question, which was mentioned in the Q&A. And I think it is very relevant to the loneliness that we feel, because Imposter syndrome was very relevant for me at that stage. I felt like I didn't know enough. I didn't know how I could contribute enough. And really getting over that was a big challenge for me, because you know that you need to add value and you want to add value, and you just need to figure out how to do it. So, you know, some of the ways that I overcame that was very similar to Chamila's discussion on building relationships and building the rapport with people. So I took the initiative. I engaged with them. I went on site. I had discussions with those SHE professionals to really understand what are the challenges they're experiencing. Because for me to add value, I need to understand how can I contribute. And coming from a business unit as well, I had a general understanding of challenges that we experienced there, but it's not necessarily the same as what others experienced. For me to overcome the imposter syndrome, I leveraged the experience of the other people. So I asked questions. I asked them, how are you doing it? I learned from them. And I apply that in my work that I do as well, because what you learn from others can be applied in many different contexts. So that was one of the ways in which I overcame that challenge for me in a group role. I've noticed in the chat a lot of people also saying that they experience that issue when they interact with other colleagues. You know, the whole us versus them connotation of being the health and safety person. We're going to come there with a stick and we're going to penalize you in some way. So the building of relationships really applies in that context as well. And I think, Adam, you touched on it very well earlier, is we need to build our allies, the people that are interested in what we do, the people that are keen in what we do. We need to build those relationships. And I've actually managed to do that quite well in the corporate environment, because it's one thing managing a group sort of strategy. It's another thing managing health and safety in your own business. And where people have come to me with a real interest, I've leveraged that interest and I've tried to make them integral to how I manage health and safety in my context. And once you've done that, they speak your message for you and they help you relay the culture that you want to have within the organization. And it's really about having open and honest conversations with people. You know, listening to their challenges and not saying, but you're not doing it right. You should listen to what they have to say and then say, why don't you do it this way? So those are some of the ways that I've overcome some of the loneliness from that perspective. Thanks, Tristan.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So as far as the three main topics that we wanted to cover, we've pretty much gone through them now. And as far as well, what's next on the agenda? I suppose it's the Q&A. Adam, have you run through any good questions in the chat or in the Q&A section itself that you'd like to put to the group or anything like that?
Yeah, so I'll just start with the chat really. There's been quite a lot of different things raised, a lot of different people starting in different sort of levels and sort of ages as well. So again, it's great to see so much sort of there. I think the point as well, just to raise really, and someone put this great commenting out there, and again, some panelists may have some thoughts on this, but a football coach doesn't play on the football field, but it's crucial to coach players and the team. And the same goes for us as HSC advisors. I would say myself, even though I'm quite early on, that has definitely been something that I've kind of felt. And again, I think that perception of health and safety advisors, managers, this was done by Peter and a fellow member of the steering group, is that people think we do the safety and not necessarily someone else. So I don't know if any panelists have any particular thoughts on that. One question which Sheena did answer briefly, is there a trend link between loneliness and health and safety role and imposter syndrome? There is some research that we may be able to sort of touch on a little bit, which may answer that. But again, I think some panelists may be able to answer that one. Somebody mentioned about them and us and driving isolation and sort of the issues that kind of come with that. And then the last one was just to ask, is there a dedicated space online for IOSH members to post examples of good practice or examples of things that they did not work? So pass them over to whoever would like to answer them.
Fantastic. Is there anyone that feels that they could input to any of the questions that Adam raised there? I know ideally imposter syndrome is quite a consistent thing that I've picked up over previous webinars with regards to job loneliness and things like that. I'll give it a few seconds just to see if anyone speaks up or not.
Well, I'll talk about this. Justin mentioned about interacting with management, and the more we interact, the management can become part of our support network. I think it's a very good point. The way I experienced this was perhaps having that language to speak with the management, because it's very important to have that skill set and that language to speak with the management in terms of business skills, in terms of understanding the project management aspect, the financial skills, or the overall general business environment where you're working, because that's very critical when talking to management. If you can obviously speak their language, then you can get their buy-in very easily. And that's where the challenge lies, and that's where perhaps the more we learn to understand and appreciate the business environment and the challenges that's faced overall in the business context, that's where we can work on getting the management buy-in. So thanks.
Fantastic. I couldn't agree more, Abdullah. And it's really important, as you know, it's like Adam said initially, you know, our role is health and safety, and that's what it should be, and that's at the forefront of what we do. But that doesn't necessarily mean the site manager's role is health and safety. You know, he's got his own deadlines that he has to meet. She's got her own deadlines that she has to be. You know, everyone's got their own things that they have to consider. And the best thing that I think we can do is understanding that and complementing it, and not necessarily as health and safety adding more hassle to an already stressful role with the people that we have to deal with anyway. I've seen Samantha's got her hand up, please. After you.
Hi, thanks, Tristan. Just to touch upon the imposter syndrome again, I'd absolutely love to see some more research into that. Just thinking about it now that I've seen the question, I'd love to take note probably on when I am feeling imposter syndrome strike, because if anyone's experienced it, you know that you can't plan for it to happen. It just happens at not necessarily the best times. And I'd love to see if that correlates to when I am feeling those moments of loneliness as well. So I just want to thank whoever raised that question, because that'll be certainly something I look to explore a bit more as well.
Fantastic, thank you, Samantha. Adam, you've got your hand up, please go ahead.
Yeah, and I just wanted to kind of sort of pop in onto this one as well, because I think for me, the imposter syndrome has come quite rapidly since starting in a health and safety role, because again, I think the expectations and reality haven't quite lined up as I've started. Obviously, again, for me in education, I'm starting at the end of an academic term, and now there's nobody on site, no lecturers, no staff, no students, and it can make you feel quite odd and sort of different. One of the things that I've found as well, and just as a piece of advice for anybody, is again just about your own journey and not worrying necessarily about everything around you or other people. I think one of the greatest things about our sort of steering group and the people that are actually on the future leaders is that everybody is coming from a different angle, a different side, and there is so much that we can learn from each other. Some people are excelling a little bit faster, and that is just the way that they have got things. Their life might be very different, but it is that we're all on the same journey, and that we're all trying to improve health and safety and make people happier and healthier in the roles that they do. So that's the important part, I feel, for me in terms of imposter syndrome, that I absolutely do feel it, but if I can make somebody feel better in their actual role at work, then that's going to be the bit that I'll take from it. And if I've done that job right, then I'm doing perfectly fine.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much, Adam. Timothy, I agree with your comment. You know, like Adam said, it is your story. And I think, especially coming out of a post-COVID area now, yeah, we've got the IOSH group meetings that'll be starting, you know, they never stop really, but you know, we're looking to hopefully get back to the in-person ones and getting that face-to-face aspect and building that network relationship again. And everyone's, you know, said to some degree that they agree with everything that's being said, And I think it's important that when you can't find that support in your physical environment, that there are avenues that IOSH are providing and that other people are providing where you can just discuss it. And sometimes the best thing, or the best people to discuss things with, is just like-minded people that have no necessary impact in your direct life as such. It's a great way to get opinions from people that are in similar scenarios. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Jamila, please, after you.
You just said just what I wanted to say, and so thanks for doing this. But also, I wanted to give you maybe a couple of pointers from my experience, or at least for me. Imposter syndrome kicks in when I feel that I don't have enough knowledge of the specific job I'm advising for. So there are so many different job activities that I don't necessarily do day to day. So I don't really have the experience. And if I have to provide advice on anything related to something I'm not 100% sure, I really feel I'm not confident. And I think what I try to do, and it really helped in the past, is try and do to shadow people in their work, spend some time with them, maybe receive some training from those people that doing this particular jobs that I didn't really feel comfortable with, and also sometimes sitting in meetings or asking if you can sit in meetings where you don't really have any business being in also helps to, it gives you like a wider perspective, so it kind of helps with your knowledge. And that kind of helped with me. So it may help some of you, depending on whether you have the opportunity or not, to kind of ask for this kind of support from the teams you work with. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jamila. Sheeny, you've got your hand up.
Thanks, Tristan. Yes, I'd actually like to answer Peter's question that he posted. Generally, with the demands of COVID, managing work-life balance has been incredibly challenging for health and safety professionals. So are there any tips I can share on how to manage it? So yes, I can share some tips on this. It was a very real issue for me last year, navigating working from home, developing COVID protocols, trying to get your business reopened in the middle of a pandemic, dealing with studying, dealing with stresses, worrying about your family. So there's a lot of pressure on health and safety professionals, I think, in this scenario specifically. And what really worked for me is firstly, if you have the resources available through your company, whether it's in the form of a wellness provider or an employee wellbeing program, make use of it. If you don't have those resources available, you speak to people, even if it's just a friend or a family member or a colleague. I mean, you'll probably find a lot of those people are experiencing the same situations as you. And if it's really reaching a point where you're struggling, don't be ashamed to reach out for psychological support. I did it. I had meetings with them. They helped me with coping strategies. And really the biggest thing for me was knowing when to switch off. So setting myself a boundary, I'm going to work from 8 to 5, and after 5 o'clock, I'm switching off my laptop and I'm not going to be focusing on that anymore. It was very difficult for me originally to do that because you feel guilty. You don't want to do it. You think the building is going to, the business is going to crash if you don't keep your laptop on. So those are some of the things that really helped me deal with that last year. So I hope that answers your question, Peter. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sheena. So yeah, we've had a bunch of resources and things like that posted within the chat itself about the career hub, the mentoring platform, the helpline. And I think it's important to know that these are there to be utilized, and we've had links in for the LinkedIn group, which we're all a part of. Like I say, feel free to connect to us on LinkedIn or just the group itself. It's a really expanding, really quick growing group, and we're hoping to achieve quite a lot and answer these questions, because there's a lot of topics out there as aspiring professionals, or even if you are further down in your career where you do feel lonely at times, you do feel imposter syndrome, you do feel uncomfortable with certain working scenarios, working environments, and like everyone's referred to consistently, it's just important just to talk and just to find a group or an outlet where you can do that freely and where people actually listen. IOSH do a fantastic job at offering those facilities. So unless there's anything else anyone else would like to touch on? I'm conscious of the time, and I think we've done quite well to hit the 2 o'clock mark spot on. If there's any other questions that you think are worth mentioning, Adam, or anyone else, please feel free to do so.
We have had a couple of questions, which I think we can certainly sort of take onto the forum, onto the LinkedIn group, on our own pages. And again, there's probably a bit more expansion onto the one that Sheena answered from Peter in terms of work-life balance. A question did come up about mental health and suicide and sort of our role as health and safety professionals. So if we haven't got time today, then absolutely we could take that offline to a different platform.
Yeah, fantastic. That sounds like a plan. Luckily, we've got a lot of links and everything's posted and ready. So I'm sure the conversation will keep going as soon as we stop now. Well, I think that ties us off then, unless anyone else has got anything they'd like to finish off with. Well, firstly, thank you very much for joining today. It's been great. Like I say, this is the first of our Honesty webinar series, and we're hoping to kind of touch on these topics that are becoming more prevalent in the current work life that we experience. So yeah, no, fantastic. Thank you very much for your time.